Watch to the end of this video and you'll never make another harsh edit again. In this video, I'm going to show you a technique I used when editing Matthew McConaughey that you can apply to your own edits. But unlike other videos on this topic, I will share my thought process on why I used this technique, and at the end of the video, you can tell me if you think I made the right choice. Before I reveal the technique, we need to back up and talk about the most common edit, the hard cut. In my video on music editing, I mentioned that beginner editors can get stuck always cutting video and audio at the same time, so I wanted to encourage them to think outside the box. But for a moment, let's get back in the box and discuss how you can make your hard cuts smoother. Let's take a look at the first two shots of this project.
Now, part of this bill sets aside billions of dollars to make American schools safer. That's money to pay for mental health resources and security for safer schools to ensure that our kids can learn in peace and without fear.
This is a hard cut and it works. It's a very common edit, it can be punchy, and it can be smooth. So what are a couple of tips to improve your hard cuts? First, even though you're cutting between pieces of dialogue, make sure there isn't an ambience shift in the soundtrack. This can be fixed with consistent room tone spanning the two shots, or an ambience that you add. Second, make sure your hard cut is precise. For instance, you may need to cut out a breath or a movement to make the cut crisp. What if I told you that the technique I'm about to share is meaningless if it's not made in the context of asking the right questions? Over my 20-year career, I have consistently relied on 5 questions that I ask for every edit. Here they are in order of importance. What is the emotion of the scene? What is the story of the scene? What is the rhythm of the scene? What is the sound of the shot? And what is the action of the shot? The first 3, emotion, story, and rhythm, are taken from the great film editor Walter Murch's 6 editing criteria. The last 2 are my own. Let's try and keep them in mind as we dive into this technique. Let me give you an example of how I might answer my 5 questions. What is the emotion of the scene? Well, confidence comes to mind. Matthew feels like an authority and he's clearly sharing something important. What is the story of the scene? In this case, we want to move the story forward in terms of Matthew getting all this information out. What is the rhythm of the scene? Well, Matthew and the camera have established a nice rhythm in this opening, so I'll definitely keep that in mind. What is the sound of the shot? I'm hearing some nice birds, which I added, also some school kids talking, which adds to the story. And what is the action of the shot? In this cut, I see the out point when his mouth comes to a close, and the end point of the next shot as the action of the camera moving up the stairs and revealing Matthew. So now that we've established the context, what are my other options? Well, in the first shot, it looks like we have Matthew turning his head after his line. But instead of simply adding time here, let's try bringing in the audio from the next shot. This editing technique is called a J-cut because it looks like a letter J in the timeline. I like this because it tells the story of him entering the school and it adds a forward thrust to the rhythm. Let's take a look.
Now, part of this bill sets aside billions of dollars to make American schools safer. That's money to pay for mental health resources and security for safer schools to ensure that our kids can learn in peace and without fear.
This is what made it into the final edit. Do you think I made the right choice? Would you have done something differently? If so, let me know in the comments. The J-cut is a great tool to smooth out your edits and is particularly valuable when cutting dialogue scenes. But what I hope I got across is that asking the right questions should always be your priority, and then select a technique that you feel is the best answer to those questions. If you got value out of this video, please subscribe, and you might want to check out my free editing guide at the link in the description. Now that you know how to smooth out your edits, you should watch this video next. Happy editing.